Hello and welcome to Travel Retail Touchdowns. Now this is the first of a series of videos covering key subject areas: the reimagining of travel retail in store, how sustainability now matters, and the advancement of tech.
We highlighted these three topics because they are of real and increasing importance to the industry as it faces the challenge of increasingly discerning travellers who are turning away from travel retail. So what we are prioritising in these videos are success stories that are real, where hopefully many learnings can be found for the industry as a whole.
So let's start then with a subject that is core to us all, or at least should be: data. As a business, we're not well known for making the best use of data, or indeed for sharing it. We've always been behind the domestic market. But this has changed with Pi Insight and their Shelf Track tool, which has radically changed how this business can collaborate, and in the last 18 months or so has effectively become the travel retail industry's equivalent of Nielsen. I visited York recently to speak to the two principals of the company. Gentlemen, welcome to Travel Retail Touchdowns. Pi Insight is still a relatively young business, but you've now become a major force with what you're actually doing as a business. Can you just broadly enlighten us as to what exactly that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Pi Insight's business has been around now for 5 years, and we built ourselves on some core products at the time, which were research and data management. So we've been around, we've been in the industry for quite some time doing that. Obviously, key people in the business have also been within the travel retail sector for quite a few years before that as well. So there is quite a large background of travel retail related insight and experience there. Now, the thing that is relatively new is that of Shelf Track, which is our new product, which looks at that retail execution. It's something that we released around a year ago now, and it's really designed to assist those stakeholders within 4 of the core categories, so alcohol, beauty, confectionery and tobacco, to really understand what's going on in the store, how space is allocated, and also that retail execution. We run Shelf Track across 50 airports, there's around 70 stores within that, and it's really designed to be a tool for the industry to really understand what's going on the ground.
So Gary, how does Shelf Track actually work?
As Steve said, Peter, we're all about bringing the travel retail environment to the desktop for our clients. And in terms of how we operate is quite straightforward really. We've got a core platform which people are able to access online, but actually the data that we've got in that, as Steve says, comes from 50 major airports around the world and more than 70 key travel retail stores. How we bring that to market is quite straightforward, however complex in its nature of bringing it together. Essentially what we do is we have a field team who go and mystery shop every single store in our repertoire, and they do that 3 times a year. So they're out in the store, in the field, and we go and visit the stores just as a regular traveller would do, because we really want to see what's happening on a day-to-day basis, just as shoppers do day-to-day, every time they visit. We harvest information from photographs, so we capture high-resolution photographs from store environments. That data comes back into us, and then we harvest data from that to turn it into the data that the clients are able to see throughout our platform.
So what then are the benefits to brands as well as retailers in the mix?
Well, I think one of the things that is really clear is that brands have been desperate for data throughout sort of my tenure in travel retail, plus it's an ongoing conversation. And what we wanted to do with Shelf Track was bring a brand new data module to the marketplace, something that has never been seen or used before. And we felt that SKU level data from stores was the next best thing to having EPOS data. So what we're doing in terms of the benefits, we're able to track, measure, improve and grow the business by offering clients eyes and ears of what's happening in store. The data that we're providing to them is essentially everything around how much space a brand has, how much space categories have, prices, promotions, and then quality standards in store. So essentially it's a tool that allows brands to really understand how they're being executed day to day across the world, and they're able to use data-driven decisions to make improvements around that.
And for retailers to better understand what's really going on in their own marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, there is, I think addressing the issue around sort of concerns over retailers is key, because I think, we understand that retailers are very reluctant to share data. They're very reluctant to be too open for reasons that we all know about. However, with this, we're bringing public domain information to market, and we are putting it into one place and using that data to help brands with their decision making.
So in real terms, it's beneficial to both brands and retailers.
Absolutely. We see this as being hugely empowering for both parties because it's a source of data that is, as I say, never been used before. And I think something that both brands and retailers don't really track on a regular basis like we are doing.
So it's essentially reimagining retail. And you are effectively the equivalent of the global Nielsen that we all know and love.
Absolutely. That's certainly sort of how I see ourselves, is that we are a global data company bringing a global read on the market and giving that to brands to help with their retailer discussions and really empowering those discussions.
So just moving on, Steve, this is to you. A very crunch question, I guess. What impact does ShelfTrack actually have on improving the shopper experience in stores? Because that is pivotal to everything you're doing.
Absolutely, and it's pivotal to the industry as well. It's pivotal to absolutely everything that we do as stakeholders to the industry. It's all about that shopper experience, how we can bring shoppers into the experience in terms of driving interactions, driving engagement, and ultimately driving conversion. What ShelfTrack allows brands to do, allows retailers to do, allows everybody to do is get visibility of what is happening in the store. It allows us to see how space is optimised or how to better optimise space. It allows us to see how different products are being activated, how they're being executed, and it ultimately brings all of that information together to allow us to develop a store experience that is more optimised to particular shoppers and how they shop that particular space. I think the big thing as well that we're looking at doing here is with the development of ShelfTrack, moving and providing this service for different categories. So, as I said, alcohol, beauty, confectionery and tobacco, is that the shoppers in each of those categories are very different. It's not a holistic approach. It's different in terms of, obviously, the ranges, the price points, and what ShelfTrack's really designed to do is to provide that kind of insight across each of those in detail. Now, using that information, brands, retailers can work together, and what we're trying to do here is provide that enabling element to have those discussions and empower those discussions when it comes to how to meet those shopper expectations and ultimately improve that shopper environment and shopper experience.
We've touched on this a couple of times now. Of course, what you've just done this year has expanded into beauty and tobacco, but it does, with the 4 categories now within your repertoire, give you a almost holistic view of the business as a whole, rather than the 2 original categories, which were liquor and confectionery. Fair?
Absolutely, and yes, very, very fair. I think when it comes to the categories that we focused on initially, it was liquor, it was confectionery. Now, when we're looking at that holistic view and looking at how we can improve or how we can assist the industry in terms of how we move forward together and collaboratively, we can't do that or have that conversation without beauty being included, without tobacco being included. So what we wanted to do was, let's say, when we're talking about this industry tool, is include everything and look across each of the core categories and make sure that we're assisting all stakeholders across the entire remit, as it were.
Well, everybody who's watching this is going to want to know how expensive your tool is, and we'll get onto the tech part of it a bit later. But as I understand it, you can tailor-make. You can bespoke products, programs for individual budgets and individual players.
That's right. I mean, we do have set prices. We try and make it as simple as possible, but ultimately what we've tried to do with ShelfTrack is make it so that it is, like you were saying, this industry tool. It's something for everybody. So whether it's a player who is one of the big ones, one of the top 5 in each category, it's something that's very pertinent for those guys to have, and obviously something that they can lean on. However, it's also something that's accessible for the other brands in the categories as well, right the way down to those that maybe are just entering the category. So, yes, there are set prices that we try and look at, but it is tailored to be a tool for everybody, and as such, the price structure obviously reflects that.
How much AI is introduced into your tool?
It's a very, very good question. Now, AI is something that I think there are still some concerns over in certain areas. AI is something that we have really looked to embrace when we look at ShelfTrack, when we look at the delivery of ShelfTrack and the ongoing development of ShelfTrack. Ultimately, what we need to do as an organisation in terms of Pi Insight, in terms of the ShelfTrack team, what we need to do is deliver timely data. So what can we do to get data collected and then to the clients in the most responsive and the quickest way possible? AI plays a key role within that because it speeds up some of those more manual or more process-driven processes. Now, everything that we do and every data point that is put into the tool is seen by an individual within our team. So we're not moving away from having a physical development or a physical team there. They are very, very much involved within this process. However, whereas before they may have been sat there doing loads of coding, doing all of those manual processes, what they can now focus on is the quality control and making sure that everything that goes out is absolutely spot on, absolutely perfect, but in the same time, look at how we can further develop. So what we're really using AI for is to take a lot of the grunt work out, as it were, so that we can use the team that we have and the experts that we have to their full potential, which is looking at how we can develop, looking at how we can harvest the data and how we can optimise the data in the best way possible.
So, Gary, where does ShelfTrack go from here?
Well, probably you'd be unsurprised to hear, Chris, that we've got a long list of things that we want to continue to do with this product. We feel that we've made phenomenal progress in a relatively short space of time. So in 15 months, we've gone from concept to now covering, as Steve said earlier, 50 key locations, 70 plus stores, and 4 core categories. So in that space of time, we've created what we believe is an industry tool, and as you mentioned, almost like a Nielsen type product, which delivers a SKU level read on our industry, which we've never ever had before. In terms of where we go from here, we feel that there's a couple of different areas that we want to work on. There's things like additional coverage, but we think at 50 airports we're already covering 70% plus of international traffic, so there's not too many more places to go. Frequency is...
That's an important number.
Absolutely, and I think it's across all of our brands and all the categories that we work with, there's always 1 or 2 airports that don't fit into that 50, and it's always the same question: can we do this airport or this airport? But however, we think that as a core product, we're covering with the 50. We've got a fabulous coverage, as I say, almost 70-80% plus international traffic coverage. The second area that we look at is frequency. So at the moment, we're going out into airports 3 times a year. Now, we know that stores change prices frequently, promotions on a more frequent basis, but the core product, the core physical aspect of the store doesn't change on that often. We know the products move around quite regularly, but the core physical element stays relatively static. That said, we've got a number of brands who are saying, can we go more than that? Can we do 5 times a year, 6 times a year? All of these things are possible. So that's sort of part of our...
If they pay for it, of course.
Of course, and that's part of our remit in terms of, can we deliver more data more frequently on that. And a lot of the things that Steve has talked around in terms of AI will enable us to do that. However, we think that the core product is, and the core delivery in terms of where we want to go from here, is to continue to focus on how the data is being used by brands and by retailers, and how we can help them to facilitate better collaboration. And that's what our core product is all about. Is ultimately this is about data-driven decisions, data informing the conversation using real data around improving the shopper experience. And that's what our core product is all about. It's really about how do we use this information to improve the retail experience day in, day out. And I'll give you some examples of how brands have embraced this, and some of the sort of we'd anticipated, but the way that they've embraced it at speed has been fabulous. So we're working with a number of brands across the categories in our portfolio, and they are giving us very clear instructions that they want to track and measure execution, whether it's around space, whether it's around position in store. They want to look at their brands versus competitors, and then they are then using our data across their entire commercial organisation. So it's not just a marketing tool, it's not just a trade marketing product, but with sales teams, with all of the different commercial functions, the data is being used on a regular basis that they can actually measure execution across the world for the first time ever. And it's been tracked and used to give sales teams a real sort of view of the world and say, this is where we need more space, this is where we need better position. And then next time ShelfTrack go into store, we'll measure it and report back.
I can see there are huge benefits for brands from an internal perspective, and also in helping them use the data in terms of the conversations you said with retailers. But the acid test is, of course, what the feedback that you're getting from the retailers, or they're getting from the retailers. What's that been?
It's been an interesting journey. I think, candidly, at the beginning of our journey, we had some genuine concerns that we were bringing a view of retail to market, that whilst it's open and in the public domain, we were sort of essentially harnessing it and putting it into a product. So we're never concerned about the data, but we did have some hesitation over what the retailer reaction would be. Now, interestingly, in that period of time, whilst we've had no direct feedback from any retailer who have come to us.
But the brands have.
The brands have used.
What does that mean?
And the feedback that we have got has been excellent. So we know that brands are using the data with their retailers. They're presenting it, they're sharing it, and they're using it in their conversations. And from what we understand, and I guess the feedback that we've got brands coming to us hungry for more data and more locations and more frequency, is that clearly that is resonating with retailers and really helping those conversations. What we're seeing, Peter, is that the response from retailers has been phenomenal. But one of the reasons why we think this is that whilst the retailers are very much the gatekeepers of what happens in locations around the world, they also lean very heavily on the brand owners and the brands for information, for insight, for intelligence. And what we've seen as a direct response, we think, of retailers asking for more information is that the hunger from brands has come to us for brand new data and brand new lens on the marketplace that they've not had before, that they are then giving to sharing with their retail partners.
So, gentlemen, just to wrap this conversation, in a very succinct summary of everything that you do and of positive benefits to the travel retail business, if there's something you want to say right now to the people watching, what would it be?
If there's one thing that I would say, it's probably to embrace it. And this is a new tool, or it's a tool that's been around for a year now. It's a tool which effectively is something that is new for the industry. It's something that's a new lens, as Gary was saying, in terms of how we look at the business. And it's a new way in which we can now look at that shopper experience, look at how things are done, look at range optimization and all of that side of things in a new but more informed way. So what we'd say is, it's not just data, there's lots of things that the data can be used for, so it's all about that, embracing it, embrace the tool, and embrace how all the things that can be done using that data that is now available to the industry.
Gary?
I think Steve's absolutely right. I think it is about how do brands and retailers embrace the data. I think one point that I'd really like to make is that whilst the data and how we've housed it and how we've brought it to market is brand new, the data itself is not new, and the measures that we're tracking is not new. These are measures that brands and retailers should be looking at day in, day out to enhance the shopper experience.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I think it's very difficult not to be impressed by what Pi Insight is doing with this shelf track tool. What do you make of it?
I love what they've done. It just shows the importance of taking an asset like space in an airport, space on the shelf, working hard to get more out of it. So this tool, I agree with you, the team at Pi to be congratulated because they've helped us to make more from that space asset. And that is a very key asset and a limited asset within airports. We don't have a lot of space. So really juicing it, really working hard to sweat that space, minute by minute, second by second, I think that's very, very interesting.
Well, the good thing about it now is that they're actually now covering the key categories, all four of them, and that Shelf Track seems to be able to deliver a more meaningful conversation between brands and their retail partners.
Definitely, and that sense of, for a brand, every brand wants to know how well am I doing in terms of the level of engagement, not just sales, obviously that's important, very significant, but beyond that is the sense of how, are people picking things up, are they looking happy? So very, very important for brands to know how well am I doing, because the future for airports, in some say, is about relationships. Brands making relationships with customers, and this is a great way to say, am I making a connection? Am I getting through beyond just picking a product up?